A father clutches his daughter. 3 masked men at the door, with a hammer. 60 seconds later, the Mercedes is gone. His daughter is crying. He's shaking. And somewhere in the darkness of Greater Manchester, his car is already being torn apart. This wasn't random. This was business. Welcome to the story of Britain's most sophisticated car theft syndicate. A £3 million criminal empire that terrorized families, exploited a pandemic, and shipped stolen Range Rovers to Dubai while the government unknowingly funded their operation with £145,000 in COVID loans. Before we expose how they built this machine and how it collapsed, understand this: what you're about to read isn't a story about petty criminals. It's about an industrial-scale operation that treated car theft like manufacturing, complete with supply chains, shipping logistics, and offshore buyers. And when their business model needed capital injection, they simply applied for government pandemic relief, and got approved within days. Armed police moved through an industrial estate in Greater Manchester. Weapons drawn. Radios crackling. Behind shuttered doors of what appeared to be an ordinary car repair shop, they found 17 stolen vehicles. Some reduced to bare chassis. Others mid-disassembly. A £70,000 Audi RS3, violently stolen just hours earlier, was already in pieces. But this was just one location. One piece of a sprawling network that stretched from the streets of Bolton to shipping containers bound for the United Arab Emirates. Meet the company. They didn't call themselves a gang. They ran their criminal enterprise exactly like a business, with hierarchy, logistics, communication channels, and a product line that happened to be stolen luxury vehicles worth millions. At the top sat Asif Hussain, 44, from Bolton. Not Arif, Asif. The media would later confuse his name, but make no mistake about who he was: a career criminal with 48 previous convictions spanning decades. A former drug dealer who'd already served 4 years in prison for narcotics trafficking. He wasn't reformed. He was evolved. Hussain posed as a respectable car dealer operating German Automotive 365 Limited, a legitimate-looking garage registered with Companies House that served as the perfect front for an international smuggling operation. On paper, the company bought, sold, and maintained vehicles. In reality, it was a washing machine for stolen property. The business had never filed a single tax return. Never registered for VAT. Never processed legitimate transactions that would generate the kind of paperwork that attracts scrutiny. It existed solely as a shell, a corporate ghost that could accept money, open bank accounts, and most importantly, apply for government funding. And Hussain was meticulous. Investigators would later discover he owned 11 separate mobile phones, each designated for different aspects of the operation. He kept handwritten notebooks filled with coded initials, vehicle specifications, chassis numbers, and destination ports. His organizational system was so thorough that prosecutors called it remarkable in its sophistication. He paid his crew in cash only, thick envelopes often hidden inside engine compartments at the chop shops, ensuring no paper trail led back to him. He switched SIM cards weekly to avoid telecommunications surveillance. And he never, ever used the same industrial unit twice once police showed interest. This wasn't an ordinary street crime. This was corporate crime wearing a high-vis jacket. His most trusted partner, Sajid Jangaria, 44, from Bolton. Directly implicated in 27 vehicle thefts. The man whose name appeared on rental agreements for multiple industrial units where stolen cars vanished and reappeared as shipping containers. Jangaria was the operations manager, the man who secured the spaces, coordinated the timing, and ensured the stolen vehicles moved through the system without bottlenecks. When police raided one of his units, they found a meticulously organized workspace, tools arranged by size, vehicle parts catalogued and labeled, even a scheduling board showing which cars were being processed and when. He understood the vulnerability window. Once a car was reported stolen, police had roughly 24 hours before it disappeared forever, either stripped for parts or sealed in a container. Jangaria's job was to ensure that window never closed on them. Then came the workforce, the men who made it all function. Hadir Ali, 39, from Rochdale, co-founder who ran multiple chop shops. When police raided one of his units in Oldham, they found him standing next to a running forklift, surrounded by dismantled Range Rover parts, claiming he was waiting for a friend. The friend never materialized. The forklift was lifting a stolen engine worth £15,000. Taib Hussain, 31, from Oldham, parts distributor who moved stolen components through shell accounts, selling them to garages across the UK who either didn't ask questions or didn't care. He specialized in high-value items, turbochargers, navigation systems, leather interiors still smelling of the victim's perfume. Ibrahim Shofi, 35, from Chadderton, the financial engineer who pulled off one of the most audacious frauds. He didn't just steal cars. He stole from the country. Using a completely fabricated company, he obtained not one but two government COVID-19 bounce-back loans totaling £95,000. The first application, £50,000. Approved. 1 month later, he opened another bank account under a different company name and applied again, £45,000. Also approved, within 5 days. The second application was processed so quickly that the bank account had barely been activated before the money landed. Shofi, identified in court records as Ibraz Shafiq, was the director of Merck Car Breakers Limited. A month before his first loan, he'd opened a Lloyds bank account under this company name. The £50,000 arrived shortly after. Then, posing as a sole trader in computing, he applied for a second loan, and the system approved it without cross-checking whether he'd already received one. Adam Elwood, 30, from Rochdale, his name appeared repeatedly on rental agreements for units police would later raid. He was the front man, the signature on the paperwork, the face that landlords saw. Clean record. No red flags. The perfect shell. Asif Mushtaq, Shaz Rahman, Imran Tahir, Zishan Ali, Mohammed Imran, the muscle. The drivers. The men who moved vehicles under darkness, who stood watch during operations, who knew how to disappear into Manchester's streets within seconds of an alarm being triggered. This wasn't joyriding. It was procurement. They communicated through a WhatsApp group literally called The Company, treating stolen cars like inventory and police raids like minor business interruptions. Messages recovered by investigators showed a chilling casualness. They discussed colors that sell fastest in Dubai and specs for Q7S with digital dashboards. They shared YouTube tutorials on keyless ignition exploits. They joked about close calls with police. And they tracked everything. Spreadsheets listing vehicle makes, models, and VIN numbers. Notes on which cars were destined for export and which would be dismantled. Even customer preferences from Middle Eastern buyers who wanted specific modifications before shipping. But behind the polished system was something darker, an obsession with control that bordered on paranoia. Hussain never met with more than 2 people at once. He changed meeting locations constantly. He insisted on radio silence during operations. No phones, no messages, no digital footprints. And when someone made a mistake, the crew would ghost them. No explanation. No second chances. The company operated with corporate ruthlessness. The company didn't wait for opportunities. They created them. Their targets weren't random. They were selected. Scouted. Followed. Range Rovers, Porsches, Audis, BMWs, often stolen to order based on demand from overseas buyers who paid premium prices for specific models in specific colors with specific features. This was bespoke crime. In Failsworth, masked intruders appeared at a family's door at 11 p.m. They didn't knock. They pounded, hard, aggressive, designed to shock. When the father answered, he found himself face to face with 3 men, all wearing balaclavas, one holding a hammer. "Where are the keys?" He hesitated. "Step outside and we'll kill you." The man's 8-year-old daughter appeared at the top of the stairs. She saw the men. Started crying. The father made a decision that would haunt him. He gave them the keys to his Mercedes. 60 seconds. That's how long the entire encounter lasted. By the time his daughter stopped crying, the car was already 3 miles away, heading toward a chop shop in Oldham. Insurance replaced the vehicle. Therapy couldn't replace the sense of safety. A man finishing errands in Bolton. 2 p.m. Bright sunshine. He's loading shopping bags into his Range Rover Sport when a car pulls up behind him, too close, blocking him in. 2 men exit. Before he can process what's happening, one shoves him hard against his own vehicle. The other snatches his keys from his hand. No words. No negotiation. Pure violence. They're gone in 30 seconds. Witnesses later told police they assumed it was a domestic dispute. By the time someone called 999, the Range Rover was already being driven into a rented unit in Wigan. Another tactic, deliberate collisions. A victim would be forced off the road, minor fender bender, nothing serious. While inspecting the damage, attackers would strike. Keys taken. Driver left stranded. Car gone. This was genius. Terrifying, but genius. Families preparing for holidays would arrive at Manchester Airport, rushing to check in. At designated parking areas, men in high-visibility jackets and official-looking lanyards would approach. "Valet parking, sir? We'll take care of your vehicle." The uniforms looked legitimate. The confidence was convincing. Travelers, stressed and running late, would hand over their keys, take a ticket, and board their flights. When they returned days later, their vehicles would be gone. The company didn't exist. The ticket was fake. And their Range Rovers were already stripped down to bare metal or sealed in shipping containers bound for the United Arab Emirates. Airport security footage later showed the same men working the parking areas on multiple dates, targeting high-value vehicles exclusively. They knew exactly which cars were worth stealing. Not all thefts were violent. Some were silent. Families would return from holidays to find driveways empty. No broken glass. No forced entry. Just gone. One couple in Rochdale had been gardening in their backyard when thieves entered through their unlocked front door, located the keys hanging in the hallway, and drove away in their Porsche Cayenne. They didn't hear a thing. The first indication was seeing their empty driveway when they came inside for tea. Another family discovered their Range Rover missing after a grocery run. It had been parked outside for 11 minutes. 11 minutes was all the company needed. But the most sophisticated thefts involved technology that most victims didn't even know existed. Relay amplifiers. Hussein's crew studied YouTube tutorials on keyless ignition exploits. Modern cars with keyless entry communicate with fobs via radio signals. The company used relay amplifiers, devices that could capture key fob signals through walls and amplify them up to 40 meters away. One thief would stand near the victim's house with a relay device, capturing the signal from keys inside. A second thief would stand next to the car with a receiver, tricking the vehicle into thinking the key was present. Doors unlock. Engine starts. Car stolen. Total time, 90 seconds. No broken windows. No hot wiring. Just technology exploiting technology. GPS jammers. Once a vehicle was stolen, the clock started ticking. Most luxury cars have built-in GPS trackers that alert owners and police to theft. The company's solution? Handheld frequency jammers purchased online for less than £100. These devices would block GPS signals until vehicles were safely inside industrial units lined with metal sheeting that naturally blocked transmissions. One victim's Range Rover pinged its location for 8 minutes after being stolen, then went dark. When police finally located it 3 weeks later at a shipping dock, it was already inside a container labeled industrial machinery parts. VIN cloning. For vehicles destined for domestic resale, the gang would clone VIN numbers from legitimate cars written off in accidents. They'd source crashed vehicles from salvage auctions, then transfer those VIN plates onto stolen cars. On paper, the stolen Range Rover became a repaired vehicle with clean history. Buyers had no idea they were purchasing stolen property. Insurance companies flagged nothing. Only forensic examination would reveal the truth, and by then, the company had been paid. Between January 2020 and January 2021, during the pandemic, while people were home and vulnerable, the gang stole vehicles worth over £3 million. Lockdowns created perfect conditions. Families were home constantly, with cars parked outside. Police resources were stretched thin managing pandemic restrictions. Courts were backlogged, meaning arrested criminals faced long delays before prosecution. Economic desperation meant more people willing to buy suspiciously cheap car parts. Shipping remained operational, providing export routes. And here's the sickest part. Some of these criminals had already been arrested during the investigation but were released under police supervision pending trial. They didn't stop. They didn't slow down. They just rented new industrial units under different names and kept operating. One gang member, arrested in March 2020, was back stealing cars by June, brazenly posting photos on social media of himself standing next to luxury vehicles, challenging police to catch him. Detectives would later describe the group as engineers in criminality, constantly adapting, learning, evolving their methods faster than law enforcement could counter them. Neighbors near the chop shops recalled hearing engines revving late at night, forklifts humming, metal grinding, industrial sounds that should have raised suspicion but didn't. To most observers, the men in high-vis jackets were just night shift mechanics working on legitimate repairs. The company thrived in plain sight. Then police opened Vale Mill. It started with one lie. A rented Audi A4 from a dealership in Altrincham wasn't returned on time. The gang claimed it was stuck in London for repairs. GPS tracking told a different story. The vehicle was stationary at an industrial unit in Chadderton, and it had been there for 3 days. When police arrived with a warrant, they found not just the Audi, but parts from 5 other stolen vehicles. Engines stacked like inventory. Doors labeled with chassis numbers. A fully operational chop shop complete with hydraulic lifts, welding equipment, and industrial parts cleaners. That discovery set everything else in motion. The gang knew police were watching. They pivoted immediately. Within a week, they rented a new unit behind a quick-fit garage in Wigan under the fake name David Brown, an alias they used repeatedly across multiple rental agreements. The landlord never verified the identity. The deposit was paid in cash. No questions asked. But they made the same mistake twice. A rented Mercedes, falsely reported stolen by one of the gang members trying to commit insurance fraud, led police straight back via the same GPS tracking technology. When officers raided the Wigan location, they found 10 stolen vehicles in various stages of disassembly and one gang member attempting to flee through a bathroom window. Then came the operation that broke everything open. Vale Mill in Chadderton, a massive industrial complex with multiple units rented under shell companies. For months, detectives in unmarked vans had watched the comings and goings. Flatbed trucks arriving at midnight. Shipping containers departing before dawn. Men in coveralls working through the night. When the raids finally came, armed police hit multiple locations simultaneously. At Vale Mill, they found what prosecutors would later call a criminal cathedral, 17 stolen vehicles, parts from dozens more, and a treasure trove of evidence. CCTV footage showing the entire operation. WhatsApp message logs recovered from phones. Handwritten notebooks detailing thefts dating back 18 months. Shipping manifests listing containers sent to Dubai and Sharjah. Even customer orders from Middle Eastern buyers specifying exact vehicle configurations. Police used telecommunications analysis to map the entire network. Cell phone towers pinged locations. The same phones appeared at multiple crime scenes. Text messages coordinated thefts in real time. A Porsche Cayenne engine stolen in Bolton was found next to a Range Rover transmission taken in London. Both had arrived at the same chop shop within hours. The same phone numbers had been active at both theft locations. The digital footprint was damning. Investigators tracked one container all the way to Seaforth docks. When customs officers pried it open, they found it labeled industrial scrap. Inside, stripped Range Rover engines worth £150,000, VINs filed off, bubble-wrapped for export, addressed to a company in Dubai that didn't exist. 2 more containers were intercepted. One stopped in Istanbul before reaching its Middle Eastern destination. Another returned unopened from Sharjah after port authorities became suspicious of the shipping documentation. Each container told the same story. UK luxury vehicles systematically stolen, dismantled, and shipped overseas where demand was insatiable and questions were scarce. The gang used a fake shipping company called Kilogram Logistics. On paper, it looked legitimate, complete with a registered address, company number, professional website, and even a customer service email that replied to inquiries. In reality, it was a paper-thin cover operated by the same criminals running the theft ring. The company existed solely to facilitate exports without raising red flags at ports. In total, over 70 years of prison time distributed across the network. But sentences couldn't undo the trauma. This case reveals an uncomfortable truth about modern organized crime. It doesn't always look like television dramas with dramatic shootouts and territorial wars. Sometimes it looks like a car dealership with a professional website. Sometimes it sounds like a WhatsApp group coordinating logistics. Sometimes it smells like a legitimate repair shop working night shifts. The company didn't need violence to succeed, though they used it when necessary. They needed systems, rental agreements, shipping manifests, bank accounts, and government programs designed to help but too rushed to verify. They were professionals. Calculating. Ruthless. Unapologetic. Asif Hussain with his 11 phones and coded notebooks. Ibrahim Shofi applying for government loans while planning the next theft. Gang members joking about police raids in WhatsApp messages. The relay amplifiers capturing key fob signals through walls. The containers labeled industrial scrap filled with Range Rover engines. Every detail showed an organization that treated crime as commerce. The long sentences weren't just punishment. They were a message to others running similar operations across the UK, to the international buyers funding these networks, and to the systems that made it all possible. Because for every engine stripped and every keyless car stolen in seconds, there were families left traumatized, businesses devastated, victims who no longer feel safe in their own homes, and a country forced to confront the reality that organized crime doesn't need headlines. It just needs systems too slow to catch up. This time, after 11 phones, 95 stolen vehicles, £3 million in theft, £145,000 in fraudulent loans, and 11 shipping containers sent to the Middle East, the system caught up. Barely. But here's what should keep policymakers awake. How many other companies are operating right now? How many other criminals with previous convictions are successfully applying for government programs designed to help legitimate businesses? How many shipping containers leave UK ports every day without proper inspection? How many keyless cars are vulnerable to relay amplifiers anyone can buy online for £80? Would tougher checks on bounce-back loans have stopped this sooner? Should manufacturers be held liable for security vulnerabilities in their vehicles? Do we need mandatory physical inspections of shipping containers leaving UK ports? Should rental properties used for industrial purposes require more thorough tenant verification? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the difference between catching the next company before they steal 95 cars, or catching them after 950. The technology exists. The knowledge exists. The regulatory frameworks could exist. What's missing is the will to implement them before the next family opens their door to find masked men demanding car keys while their children cry upstairs. The company thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. But the systems that enabled them? Those are still operating exactly as they did before. And somewhere in Greater Manchester tonight, another fresh one is being scouted. Another relay amplifier is being tested. Another fake company is being registered. The question isn't whether another company will rise. It's whether we'll catch them in 12 months or 12 years.